Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Star Wars The Clone Wars episode review. This one is going to be for Season 7, Episode 10, which is basically Finale Part 2, The Phantom Apprentice. So yeah, we've only got 2 episodes of The Clone Wars left now, and I've got to say that this was an incredible episode. Just like last week, but I think this one was even better. It was more action-packed, and the connections they were making here, the scenes that they kind of inserted in, were really sort of like blow away, sort of surprising. Especially that Obi-Wan Ahsoka scene. I really didn't expect that we'd have another scene between Ahsoka and either Anakin or Obi-Wan. So that was a great one to see, especially with that scene confirming to us where within Revenge of the Sith we actually are. So we're still within the kind of first rough section of Revenge of the Sith, but we're getting towards the middle and approaching the end, of course. So that it's stuff like that that I think makes this arc feel so important, in that they're linking it so perfectly in with episode 3, that, you know, Ahsoka isn't in episode 3, but here's what she is doing during all that and while it's happening, and that the stuff that's happening with her is super important. This isn't just some side story, but just the idea that she's here to face Maul. And Maul, of course, because he was previously Sidious's apprentice, knows what the plan is. He knows what the Revenge of the Sith plan is. And that's what makes Maul so brilliant for me in this episode, is that him and, you know, what he knows already, plus the sort of visions he's been having, add together to the fact that he knows that they are moments away from Order 66 happening. And he knows that the Empire is coming. The Republic is going to fall, the Jedi are going to fall. And he's just trying to find a way to get out of this all right. That's why he's hoping he can stop Sidious's plan by bringing Obi-Wan and Anakin there and killing Anakin, so Sidious won't have the true apprentice that he wants. He's hoping to, you know, maintain his criminal empire, so he'll have some sense of power when the Empire comes to power, and that maybe Sidious without Vader, he might be able to achieve that power himself. But when the time comes down to it at the end of the episode, he ultimately asks to, you know, Ahsoka to kill him rather than him just be captured, given what's going to happen. And I think that is such a great dynamic for the character, and I think it links quite heavily into his sort of especially his like last appearance in Rebels, his death scene with Obi-Wan. It just, I think, serves to highlight that in a way, once he realizes he can't get what he wants, his ambitions are not ever going to be fulfilled, all he sort of wants is that sort of good death. And that's what happens, obviously, in that episode of Rebels with Obi-Wan. But here we see him more desperate here. He does not want to be just held captive here. He would prefer to die than be held captive knowing what's about to come. So it's going to be interesting to see the specifics of course, as Order 66 happens, how they orchestrate, you know, Maul escaping and Ahsoka and Rex getting out of this. They're the sort of key events that we sort of know have to happen, because most of those main characters in this do make it out of this alive. But yes, so many fantastic scenes here. Like, obviously we opened up with how do they resolve the cliffhanger from the first part. Ahsoka sort of calls in Rex and everyone else, and so they're taken by surprise. It allows Ahsoka to escape from Maul with a quick tease of their lightsaber duel, with them just having a little small sequence before Maul just escapes. That's when we head over to the scene with Obi-Wan, which is very cool. He's just there basically getting an update on what's going on the Mandalore battlefront. And like that, things are going okay. It's still fairly even at this point. They're still trying to, like, you know, find Maul and locate him. And this is when Obi-Wan informs them that, you know, Dooku is dead. That he I think the most important thing in all of this is that this is something the Clone Wars has set up. That the Jedi know the Clone Wars at this point has pretty much been orchestrated by by Darth Sidious, by someone else, playing both sides against each other. But they don't know what to do with that information because it's such a complicated situation in that, okay, the two combatants in the war are ultimately being manipulated to fight each other, but it is still a war. They can't stop the droids just by default at the source. So is the best play to just drop out of the war and just see what happens? But at that point, you're basically giving the planets over to the Separatists, and we don't know what exact way Palpatine would change the plan if the Jedi pulled like the clones out of the war and stuff like that, and that would more create an issue of like the Jedi immediately kind of being considered traitors by everyone and so on. So it's such a complicated situation for everyone here. But it was great to see Obi-Wan explain that and just kind of highlight the complexity of the situation to Ahsoka, that she gets it as well, of like yeah, the Clone Wars, like what do we do? Do we just not fight? It's all about Sidious, but we don't know who Sidious is yet, and obviously at this point we're this close because he informs Ahsoka in this scene about the mission that Anakin is on. Anakin has killed Dooku, who could have been important to giving them information. That adds sort of another angle to that as well of, yeah, if they had managed to just capture Dooku at that point, he probably could have given them information. That's where you see that moment of like, as he dies, he looks over at Palpatine. He doesn't say anything, but just his expression as he looks at Palpatine sort of gives away a little bit. So it's such an interesting thing to think about, especially with, you know, Maul towards the end of the episode explaining that to the other Mandalorians that, you know, I thought Dooku was just an old fool, but ultimately he's just like me. He's not the apprentice Sidious actually wants. He's just using me. He used me, and he used him. Now we know where he's ultimately building towards, the pupil he actually wants, and Maul just wants to deprive Sidious of another pupil, basically, that he can use. Which is, I think, great motivation that really fits the character who has been defined since his return by that idea of trying to do everything, you know, on his own, somehow defy and get one over on his master for, you know, betraying him, you know, just leaving him out, and so on. They touch on the Son of Dathomir stuff here by Maul noting to the Mandalorians that, like, you came in and allowed me to escape from Sidious, but that's really about it. That, and then they established that obviously that's where Dooku and Maul actually meet. So that's why he's actually sort of familiar with Maul up to this point, which is, again, that's one of the good things about this episode with Maul, is that they do establish, like, oh yeah, he's never really met like Anakin or Ahsoka, so he does actually need to learn about who they are. He knows about who Anakin is because he has to know of Obi-Wan as an apprentice, but the significance of Anakin obviously only comes to light here with the idea of you know, him being kind of groomed to be the next apprentice for Sidious. And then he's like, okay, but who is Ahsoka? And so that's the information he gets from the clones, and it's like, Anakin's apprentice, and she's not part of the Jedi Order anymore. So like this is the stuff he sort of learns, I suppose, by interrogating Jesse, plus some of the stuff from his visions/dreams that he's been having. And it creates such a great dynamic when they finally walk into that sort of Mandalorian throne room, and Maul, basically to Ahsoka, offers her the chance, join me and together we can take out Sidious. We can win this. We can turn things in the right favor. I'm not a Sith anymore. You're not a Jedi anymore. We're the same in some ways. We've been sort of like, we're outcasts of what we were originally part of. We can stop everything from happening. And then the other plot in this episode is obviously like, Maul wanted to lure Obi-Wan there for revenge, of course. But who is the second person that Maul wanted to lure to Mandalore? And there's a little bit of a tease about it with Almec, but ultimately Almec reveals that it is Anakin Skywalker. So, you know, Ahsoka asks, you know, why Anakin? And this is an important scene, because they tease the entire time that, like, at the end of the Obi-Wan scene from earlier on in the episode, that Obi-Wan basically asks Ahsoka, I think you should talk to Anakin about the whole decision to, spy on the Chancellor and the mission that he's been given. I think it would mean a lot, sort of, coming from you talking to him about this. And obviously this is meant to sort of further the idea of Ahsoka's sort of distrust feelings about the Jedi Order. But at the same time, what she learns in this episode very much, I think, justifies, some of the Jedi's actions and all of that, of like having to be suspicious at this point in the war, and they know that it's a manipulated war. They have to do something to try and solve it. So even if it leads to some distrust, it's something they had to do to not just feel helpless in everything that's going on. And especially when like Ahsoka gets the information she gets from Maul, you definitely get the sense of like she knows something is happening here. Like Anakin is the key to this. I think she more or less pieces together this idea of like someone has been grooming Anakin to be their next pupil. She literally said dialogue in this episode earlier on that said the same idea of Palpatine is close to Anakin and like he respects him very much, and the Jedi are suspicious of Palpatine. I think Ahsoka is beginning to make those connections and realize that, oh, we've been fools here. Like, why haven't we seen this? Like, this is all beginning to come together with the idea that Maul, of course, is pretty much the only one who knows that, like, that specifically saying it that way, Sidious has been grooming Anakin because of the extra information that he has. That's really, really well done. He's not telling her the full story of events. He doesn't tell her about Order 66. But obviously he knows pretty much that is coming. That he pretty much has to, because that was a part of the thing from the first place in a way. Because like we know he was familiar with the idea. The Clone Wars have started, so the plan is going as proceeded. The Revenge of the Sith plan is being executed as expected. So that's just like throughout this whole episode, the stuff with Maul and him knowing more. Like referring to the fact that, of course, he was Sidious's apprentice from episode 1. He knows most of this plan. He's been assisting in this plan from the start of this. It makes his speeches so, powerful. Like the whole idea, like the speech he gives about, Ahsoka will bring him to justice, but like, justice is only like, in the eyes of basically whoever's in charge. Like, what does it mean if someone else if someone different is in charge? And it obviously builds up to the big Ahsoka Maul lightsaber fight that they've been teasing. This has probably been like one of the main things that was teased about this season, was this duel between Maul and Ahsoka. Now, I think what's interesting about this duel is that we've like known for years that there's no like finish in a way to this duel. Like neither character dies in this duel. That it doesn't end with like effectively a winner in a way, in that they end up doing this fight, ultimately in a similar way to the way they do Obi-Wan Maul, in that Maul gets the victory on like a technical level, like as a lightsaber duelist, but like Ahsoka ends up sort of like winning the fight by, countering Maul at the moment when he leaves himself open because he thinks he's won. And that she basically kills him in that moment, except the clones are there, sort of outside interference, to capture him, because with Dooku dead, they need Maul to get extra information on the Clone Wars, which is especially important now that they know the Clone Wars has been manipulated. So a lot of the kind of plotting coming together very nicely. And I think even if you've read the Ahsoka novel, I think it is still a somewhat surprise that Maul was captured like this, because the way I'd almost read like the Ahsoka novel and like what we were expecting is that it'd just be this ongoing battle, and that maybe Ahsoka and Maul were dueling as Order 66 happened, and obviously Order 66 interrupts their duel, which allows Maul to escape. In this case, it seems like they're going down the road of Order 66 is going to interrupt Maul's captivity, and that's going to allow him to get away. And of course, that will lead then to the major plot point of Ahsoka gets out of this alive, but has to go into hiding like every Jedi does with Order 66, and also Rex gets out of this alive as well. I do wonder, will they confirm what happened with Wolf? Like, that's one of Plo Koon's clones. So, I wonder, will they in any way cut over to set that up? It would be a little bit of a weird plot point, I think. Similarly, do we even know, like, Gregor as well? Like there's 3 clones that we meet in Rebels. Like, I think we don't actually know, like, technically, like, when or how all of them got their kind of chips out. So that's an interesting point. I wonder, will they touch on that at all? Because I assume Rex here, we will find out, like, when, how he took out his chip. In that, like, I think I need to watch that episode again in terms of the specific details. Like, I don't think Rex specifically knows about the chip, but he has a sense that there's something going on. So, that will be an interesting one to see how that information comes up. Of, like, will he reveal that actually one of the others told me about it, and I've taken it out already, or that you're going to have to find a way to take it out of me here on the battlefield, or whatever. The question really is ultimately, like, are we going to see Rex turn, or will they just commit to the idea that Rex has already had it taken out, so all the clones are, it's just against Ahsoka and Rex? Because I think that's probably the best way to do it, because then you have the Order 66 reaction from both Rex and Ahsoka. You see all of Rex's, brothers turning on him, and then Ahsoka has just had this great reunion with the clones who are, like, loyal to her, with her colors, on their helmets. That betrayal is going to hit home so hard. And I think that's why they emphasized Jesse quite a lot in this episode, with him being one of the original clones. Like, he's been around for a while. We've seen him in other arcs. That's why I think they focused on him, not just because Maul will get more information from him, but that when Order 66 hits, Jesse is, I think, going to sort of represent the face, the identity of the now enemy clones that are going to have to be taken out potentially. And I'm wondering, will we get a situation where either Ahsoka or Rex is forced to kill Jesse? I think that's potentially why they might have, like, focused on him, calling him by name, having a little bit of a plot in this episode with him to make it all the more tragic when Order 66 hits, and he realistically is, like, the leader of the clones who are affected by the Order 66 command. Again, assuming they take the approach of Rex has the chip out at this point, which I don't believe we actually know at this point. I might be misremembering something from Rebels we learned, or even the end of the, like, Order 66 arc with Fives, but I don't think it was specifically stated. Like, if I remember correctly, like, the last line of dialogue between Rex and Fives wasn't, like, him revealing the truth in or any way. It was more focused on the emotions of just the death of Fives. But I'll check it out probably after recording this video. I think that's most of the episode. Again, there's so much to it, but, I love the Obi-Wan Ahsoka scene. Oh yeah, the lightsaber duel, I suppose, in terms of choreography, that's what I was talking about, and then went off on a different tangent. I thought the choreography was amazing. You could tell that they did motion capture on this. Again, Ray Park was obviously involved here. You could tell it was his choreography from Maul, 100% with the double blade lightsaber. And it was an interesting duel to see double blade lightsaber against Ahsoka's, basically dual wielding, but her kind of unique dual wielding, where she has one normal sized lightsaber and then one smaller blade. You can tell it's not the most effective, combination of weapons for Ahsoka to be, like, excelling at one-on-one lightsaber combat. In that, what you got from this fight was that Maul is sort of, past his prime, both because of his injuries and also, I suppose he's getting older. But he's not really that old at this point. But still, the idea being that, his injuries because of Obi-Wan mean that he is not where he used to be. And then Ahsoka is sort of, just returning to things, but is sort of still hasn't quite yet reached the heights of her power. In that, in this fight, she still feels that a little bit lightweight, and that Maul ultimately is able to sort of control the actual sequences that they have, and I think that's why they chose to make the sort of ending of the fight be that Maul is able to disarm Ahsoka by getting rid of both of her lightsabers. And then it's Ahsoka's sort of like cleverness and like agility at the end that gets her the victory over Maul in the end. Just highlighting that, Ahsoka's strengths as a lightsaber duelist is very much focused on her quickness, and she's more in a way suited to taking down like battle droids and like blaster deflection in a way like that, because that's sort of the aim of her having that like second lightsaber. Because obviously she only got that like part way through the series. But still, it was a great showing, because it was meant to sort of emphasize Ahsoka's growth as a character, that she is now able to go one-on-one with Maul completely evenly and be a honest match for him. And I think that is a great showcase that like Maul is Obi-Wan's opponent, but they were able to turn Maul Ahsoka into a very notable duel, with them highlighting the connection between the two of them, of both sort of the outcasts from their respective organization, the Sith and the Jedi. And this being this duel over, I suppose, kind of the honor, the fate of Anakin in a way, in that Maul ultimately wants to kill Anakin to stop his destiny from happening, and it's Ahsoka fighting for the sense of like, I don't believe my master could ever do that. So I like that she was kind of like, okay, we'll see where this goes if you're honestly willing to help. But the second he mentions that he's kind of out for Anakin, like that's when she's open towards fighting him. But yeah, like, is it the best lightsaber duel in the Clone Wars? I would say more or less yes. I think the ones that come close to me would be like Obi-Wan versus Maul and Savage. That's definitely one of the better ones. I do again maintain Maul and Savage versus Sidious is also an excellent duel. And we've had other ones along the way as well, where there's some very strong choreography. But this is definitely right up there, just because of the sort of quality of the choreography, the story they told over the course of the fight. It's not the best, just because I ultimately would say it's probably Ahsoka's lightsaber fighting style that doesn't make for the like absolute best choreography, in that it was sort of a little bit of a mismatch of strength in this case. But still, it was very, very entertaining. But you can see the growth of Ahsoka from how she is as a duelist here versus her as we meet her in Rebels, and how much more experienced, skilled, and composed she feels when she's like dealing with the Inquisitors, when she kind of has her big duel at the start of when she's her one of her first appearances in Rebels and so on. I think that's most of this episode. At this point, with the way the episode ends, it's going to be very interesting to see when in the next episode Order 66 happens, because I feel very confident in saying Order 66 kind of has to be next episode, because I think they will want to leave a good amount of time post Order 66 within the remaining two episodes to devote to covering some sort of an epilogue and really delivering, I think, something new to us, because I think that's what they've been saying in interviews about this, is that this arc is going to sort of surprise us with like what it does. And I think that's what they've done with the scene with Obi-Wan in this episode. I don't think we expected that to happen. So I'm kind of wondering, might we actually get another scene with Anakin and Ahsoka? I know most people felt that last week was a fairly good last meeting. But just the fact that Obi-Wan leaves Ahsoka with the idea of you should talk to him about this, to me it almost feels like, could they use a final conversation with Anakin and Ahsoka to maybe add some extra layers to what's going to happen with Anakin going forward? Like, what if that last conversation doesn't go particularly well, and he feels that Ahsoka has, gone against him or something like that? That could add to his sense of everything falling apart around him. but I'm not really sure how the timing necessarily is going to work, because Maul seems to be teasing that like Order 66 is like right here, and obviously we know that Anakin is involved in Revenge of the Sith and a bunch of stuff in the build up to Order 66 eventually happening. In that, Mace confronting Palpatine. I suppose that's what's happening around this point. Like it is those kind of scenes of like Anakin and Palpatine at the opera, the mention of Darth Plagueis. That stuff is, I think, happening right now. So there's probably a little bit of a time, like when Anakin is maybe like pondering over what he should do. Like it'd be so interesting if they just inserted the scene of like, Mace has gone to confront the Chancellor, and he calls Ahsoka before he goes to join it. That might not be the best time, but it seems like there are options. And as for what they're going to do, like it feels like there's going to be a few scenes before we get into the action of the next episode, but I almost feel like they almost have to get straight into the big stuff happening. Like, is Obi-Wan going to contact Ahsoka again? I almost think that that's probably what might happen, because now that she has actually captured Maul. So if there's any sense of like she has time to do anything at the start of the next episode, it probably should be calling Obi-Wan. But again, it depends completely on where he is on Utapau, in terms of that sequencing and so on. Like, is this post death of Grievous? Like, it almost feels like that's the way we're going. That like we're gradually cutting in at these important moments of like, yeah, like I've defeated Grievous. He contacts Ahsoka. Have you talked to Anakin? No, or something like that. And he finds out that Maul's been captured. So things seem to be going well. The Jedi are like this close to ending the war until the stuff with Anakin happens. So that's all really, really good. Again, I maintain, I think they probably will do an extended Order 66 sequence. I think it feels like it's something this show almost like has to do. Again, it depends on how character focused they want to be here. Like, do they really just want this to be Ahsoka's story during all of this? Or will they be willing to, when Order 66 happens, to show more of the Jedi, focus a little bit more on the likes of Plo Koon's death, given like the importance of that character to Ahsoka. It's Plo Koon. Plo Koon is Dave Filoni's like favorite character, I believe. But it's either it's his favorite character, or it's his favorite sort of like non sort of main character Jedi. Either way, that's his guy. So I'd be shocked if we didn't get anything, especially given that like one of the clones who ends up sort of surviving things is Wolf. So I don't know where they're necessarily going to like fit that in. But there's some big stuff coming up. I think Order 66, if they can get that right and have it really hit home, could be one of the best sequences in the entire show. It's going to be like incredibly emotional and impactful, but it's going to be huge when it happens, because you're going to see Rex and Ahsoka dealing with that. It probably is the way Maul escapes. And then if they do cuts away to seeing the characters like be killed after we've met them in this show, that could be like incredible. But yeah, they're my thoughts on this second part of the finale of the Clone Wars. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode, as well as what I had to say about it. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.